Live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News at 5 starts now.
And we begin tonight with the war in Israel. A number of new developments as shelling from both sides continues throughout the day and into tonight.
Now to live pictures from the seaside town of Ashkelon. They've endured rocket attacks throughout the day, and now, as we know, we are learning that the fighting could take a drastic turn. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. I'm Karen Drew, in for Kimberly Gill tonight.
And I'm Devin Skillian. We're going to kick off our coverage here at 5 with a sense of what it's like on the ground right now in Israel. Richard Engel filed this report from southern Israel just before sunset.
The situation down here in southern Israel has just changed. For the last several days, what we've been seeing is Israeli airstrikes into the Gaza Strip, Israeli planes attacking Hamas targets, the homes of Hamas leaders, Hamas infrastructure. But now a military buildup is underway, and it seems that a ground invasion could be imminent.
Now back here in the U.S., President Biden is preparing to speak to Jewish community leaders.
The big news is happening in the House amid the push to find a new Speaker of the House so votes can happen on sending funding to Israel. Jay Gray has that part of the story tonight from Washington. Jay.
Hey there, good evening, and a lot is unfolding on Capitol Hill right now. The House has stepped closer to electing a new speaker, and that could open the door to providing more aid to Israel as the war with Hamas now moves closer to a new, potentially more violent phase on the ground. In what is, by Washington standards, a surprisingly fast move, House Republicans have agreed for now that Louisiana Representative Steve Scalise will move forward as a candidate for Speaker.
Obviously, we have a very important vote. It's really, really important that this Congress get back to work. We select a Speaker, go to the House floor, get to 218, and then get the House working again. With the full House in session, Scalise needs a simple majority to be elected leader. In a secret ballot behind closed doors today, he reportedly had the support of 113 of his Republican peers, which means this legislative tug of war is still far from over. And adding pressure to the politics. For the fifth day now, rockets fill the air between Gaza and Israel, a fight that could soon shift to the ground, with Israeli tank battalions gathering along the border and more than 300,000 soldiers shifting from reserve to active duty. U.S. support growing in the region. American warships and fighter jets now in place in the eastern Mediterranean. The first shipment of American weapons and ammunition landing in Israel overnight. And we now know a team of U.S. military technical experts experienced in hostage recovery are on the ground as advisors with reports of dozens of American hostages in Gaza. President Biden, in what's become a daily message, promising continued support.
My commitment to Israel's security and the safety of the Jewish people is unshakable. The United States has Israel's back.
But additional funding and resources won't come without congressional approval, and that can't happen until there's a new Speaker of the House. Sources tell NBC News that a vote by the full House is not likely this evening, and when that does happen, that his opponent, Jim Jordan, is likely to support Scalise's election. In Washington, Jay Gray, Local 4.
All right, Jay, so the first votes on a speaker were initially slated for late this afternoon. They gavelled into session and then immediately recessed, so far that has yet to happen. And as Jay said, at this point feels unlikely today.
Now closer to home here, day 27 in the United Auto Workers strike against the Detroit Three. Negotiations continue quietly and slowly.
Tonight, Local 4 business editor Rob Maloney lets us in on a new wrinkle in the talks, maybe changing the way we should be looking at the numbers we're hearing here, Rod.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation that we just confirmed here. Here's the thing. The most recent UAW contract have been for 4 years. So if they followed that template this year, the end date for the current contract was going to be September 15th of 2027. But Local 4 News has learned that will not be the case this time around. Like so much having changed in the UAW national talks, both the companies and the union are now extending the date in this contract to May 1st of 2028. That's nearly 5 years from now. So let's look at what that means on the practical level.
We have heard the current pay raise numbers on the table with the domestic three exceed 20%. But just for round numbers, let's go with 20%. Under the old contract, that would be a 5% a year raise. But now dividing by 5, that number drops to 4% a year, and it's likely they're going to front load the contract and the raises become even smaller down the line. Many dodging raindrops in the picket line today in Auburn Hills at the Stellantis Quality Engineering Center told Local 4 they knew about this development and didn't want to talk about it. But we did find members like Tracy DeJesus at the Sherwood facility and Warren who hadn't.
Are you surprised by that?
Very. This is the first time I'm hearing it, actually.
But she isn't concerned either. Wayne State University business professor Dr. Merrick Masters hadn't heard, and he wasn't surprised either.
At this point, I'm not surprised at anything that has happened in this set of negotiations.
A source close to the negotiations tell Local 4 News there are a number of reasons for this, but mostly because these national talks started immediately after Sean Fain won the presidency. The union is looking to extend that time between a presidential election and when the national talks actually start.
This is not unprecedented. I think that companies and unions, particularly companies, like a longer term to evaluate things.
And also ballpark as closely as possible, having given into cost of living adjustments, fixed expenses.
The dates are not chosen arbitrarily. They're chosen for a reason.
Another reason for this, we're told, is that the union is also looking to take what they believe already is a record contract and start trying to organize the transplant plants down south with companies like Toyota, Honda, and BMW. This allows them more time for that project.
So let me ask you the question that everyone is asking you everywhere you go, everyone in the newsroom, probably your wife Karen.
Yes, precisely.
What are the prospects for what's the outlook right now for getting a contract
It's
done?
not looking good. And the reason I say that is because when you throw in the joint venture plants into this, that complicates everything. Like Ford, they're down south in Kentucky, Tennessee. Stellantis, they've got their announcement today about their plant down in Kokomo, Indiana. Those are joint venture plants, different companies. They have to get them on board. So there's a lot to this. I think we're going to be around when the snow's flying.
Oh, boy. So we've got moving parts even as it's being done right now.
They're moving forward, but there's so much to do. It's going to be a while, I think.
All right, Rod. Let's move now to a row of vacant businesses going up in flames in southwest Detroit this morning. This happened along Verner near Lawndale, not too far from Patton Park. At one point, the fire went to 3 alarms. The cause is still under investigation. On the bright side, it does not appear there were any injuries in the fire. But one person is dead, another under arrest tonight after a crash late last night on the Lodge Freeway.
This happened about 11:15. It was in the southbound lanes near West Outer Drive. Police believe both speed and alcohol played a factor. Sean Lay live on the story for us. Sean, an innocent driver lost their life in this one.
21 years old, and a passenger, as a matter of fact, the driver in critical condition. Look, we all know about the speeds on the Lodge. Let's give you a live look right now. Southbound lanes. This is where this horrible crash occurred. And MSP saying that the driver that caused it likely was under the influence, but also mixed with outrageous speed.
The injury accident, squad 1.
It's happened again, tragedy on one of our Metro Detroit freeways, and this time it happened on the Lodge. MSP says it's all due to a driver speeding, possibly under the influence.
Central, this is Engine 53. Be advised we got CPR in progress.
CPR in progress after a car came roaring down the southbound Lodge near Outer Drive, slamming into an innocent person's vehicle. You can hear Detroit Fire right on the Lodge performing CPR, trying to save a 21-year-old passenger from Detroit who did not make it. He was in the vehicle that was hit. Detroit Fire looking in the mangled messes to see if anyone else was hurt or trapped inside both vehicles.
Central, this is Engine 53. You can pick up the squad. We don't have anything else trapped.
The driver of the victim vehicle had to be cut out by Detroit Fire and Detroit EMS, rushing that person to Sinai Grace Hospital, where MSP says the driver is in critical condition. In a series of messages on X, what used to be called Twitter, MSP stating the speeding driver is under investigation for being under the influence of drugs, alcohol, or both. And MSP again putting out the warning that speed is killing. So many crashes just like this one are completely avoidable. MSP stating we have lost another member of our community in a preventable crash. There is no excuse for any driver driving at a high rate of speed and under the influence on our roads. Back here live above the Lodge, MSP saying the people in the suspect vehicle, including the driver, not injured. Driver not in custody right now. Devin and Karen, MSP waiting on toxicology results, and then they'll present everything to the prosecutor. We're live tonight. Sean Lay, Local 4, back to you.
Tragic. All right. Thank you, Sean.
We turn to the weather now. You can see around Sean, we've seen rain on and off again today as we take a look at right now a fairly clean 4D radar, although a little bit of rain up toward the thumb.
Yeah, let's take a look outside from our Windsor Skycam. That cruise ship that you see is the MS Hamburg. It came all the way across Lake Erie here to Detroit. We're getting a lot of cruise ships.
It is, which is nice. Unfortunately, they're right now seeing mostly dreary days.
Yeah.
That's the way it's been lately, and we've got more in store.
Let's send it over to Kim and see what we can expect for the rest of the day.
Yeah, it's a little different than pulling into a port in the Caribbean, isn't it?
A little.
A little bit different. We love it, though. We've got a little bit of rain up in Port Huron, but the rest of Metro Detroit is dry, so it will not be rainy like it was last night. Can't rule out a spotty shower, but practices for kids' sports and things like that should go on tonight as planned. Now, it is just a little bit, and I do mean a little bit warmer than it was yesterday. We did make it to 62 out at the airport. It's now in the low 60s in Ann Arbor, but only 53 in Pontiac. So you get into the northern suburbs and it is quite a bit cooler. 55 now in Mount Clemens, but it's warmer than it was yesterday. In fact, it's 15 degrees warmer right now than it was just 24 hours ago in Ann Arbor, 9 degrees warmer at the airport, and 11 degrees warmer down in Monroe. Tomorrow will be a couple of degrees cooler, and we'll have quite a few clouds, but maybe a break or two of the sun. We saw it briefly today, but if you blinked, you probably missed it. 59 for the high tomorrow. Can't rule out a spotty shower tomorrow, but the amount of rain that we're going to get on Saturday looks like it's going to be quite measurable, and we'll have cold air to go along with it, and we need to talk about it coming up in the forecast.
Yeah, we will.